Well, I think the most interesting game of week one might be the Dolphins Chargers because you have Justin Herbert and Tua Tagovailoa going head to head, where
Yeah.
obviously those two quarterbacks forever will be linked because of where they were taken in the NFL draft.
hmm Evan, what do you think?
Well, I got a few games. I think the two most interesting. Are we just talking week one or the season so far?
Just week one.
So just week one, I think right off the bat, Lions in Kansas City is a super interesting game because everybody's been hyping up the Lions. They had that great performance in week 18 last year. That beating the Packers. Yes, it was close in score, but really not much. The Lions were dominating that game. But I was not a huge fan of the Lions draft. I was not a huge fan of the Lions offseason. I don't think they got some nice players. I don't think they addressed every single need. That defense still has a little bit of holes on it. That's it. This is going to be a good test right away. Everyone's saying the Lions could be the favorite for the NFC North. Let's see if Kansas City comes out and hammers them. That's the week one game I'm probably looking the most forward to right off the bat.
Yeah, the week one games I'm looking forward to is the teams with the new quarterbacks. So that would be the games with the new quarterbacks. That would be the Colts, Jaguars, Falcons, Panthers, and Titans, Saints. Obviously with the Colts drafting Anthony Richardson, I believe it was fourth overall. He's coming into that season. I believe he's going to be the starter in week one against the Jaguars.
He will
Um,
start. Yeah. Who else is going to start? Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, and then looking to that Panthers Falcons game, I think that'd be interesting because Bryce Young, we've seen all offseason, he looks small behind that offensive line. Like he looks tiny. So
Yeah.
that'd be
Well,
interesting to
we
see
we
how,
did a
how
we
that
did a
plays
whole
out.
segment on this. He measured in at like what 5'10" and something like that. So he's gonna look
Yeah.
small, but if he can play, he can play. That's my mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, but my thing was he looks skinny too. What happens when he gets hit by those big defensive linemen? That's my
Very
thing.
Very fair question that I outlined in a video we had. Go and check it out. We talked about Bryce Young, but yeah, I outlined all
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
And then I think the other game I'm looking forward to is the Titans Saints. Will Levis beat Ryan Tannehill out for that starting job, and how will Derek Carr get with the Saints?
yeah. So what about
Jordan,
the
who do
rest?
you think
What
has?
about the rest of the season, guys? Like, so I guess for me, it's two games right off the bat. You were talking about rookie quarterbacks. Well, I think Houston and Carolina are going to play. I believe, and they're going to play. I don't know what week, but some point in the season, Houston and Carolina. I wish it was week one because I remember when Mariota and Winston were both rookies, they did week one, and that was an awesome showdown. Titans kicked the crap out of the Buccaneers.
Yeah,
But it would be really cool to see both of those guys week one. And then obviously the Super Bowl rematch is week 11. Eagles and Kansas City. The Eagles have been building the super team. We'll see how that goes. What are some non-week one games you guys are looking forward to? Jordan, I'll go with you. Yeah.
I'm Atlanta, New Orleans, really, and it's because you figure that those two teams are going to be the two front runners in the NFC South. We'll see what Carolina looks like. They're getting a lot of hype, but that week one game between Carolina and Atlanta that Jake referenced will go towards determining that. But Atlanta, New Orleans for me.
Okay.
yeah. I think the most interesting game for me beyond week one is I think it's the second to last week. I think it's the Bengals and Chiefs. I think you know, obviously the Bengals with Joe Burrow and the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. That's a great game no matter how you play it. Like that's just gonna be a great game.
I
Um,
think right now that's like the rivalry of the NFL right now.
oh
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. And then I agree with Jordan. I think the Falcons and the Saints. I think obviously, as I mentioned, the Saints with Garrett Carr earlier, the Falcons with Desmond Ridder. They're gonna be the top. They're probably gonna be the top two front runners in the NFC division. I think well, of course, Jordan said how we'll see how the Panthers play out with Bryce Young, and we'll see how the Buccaneers play out as well. Either Baker Mayfield starts for the team or Kyle Trask starts for the team. How do we know? It'll probably be Baker Mayfield. Um, so we'll just see how those two teams look. But the Falcons and the Saints are probably gonna be the front runners.
Two other notes I've had last week of the season. I always like to look at the first and the last two because the last week of the season is when they all face division. Buffalo travels down to South Florida in the last week of the season, and that could have that could be for the division if all plays
It
out.
could be.
It's super early to say that. I understand.
The
You know,
season
you got
hasn't even started yet. What do you mean it's
yeah,
super early? Hasn't
it's
even started yet.
but
September 10th.
yes, exactly. But
Well,
you
that's the
got
first time, but
yeah, you got Rodgers and the Jets who will play factor, but that game it at the very minimum will probably have some playoff implications. And then the other thing, the last thing I just noticed with this NFL schedules, the Packers have 5 primetime games. I don't know if the schedule
Yeah.
makers noticed this, but the Packers lost a certain number 12. And I don't know how well they're going to be playing those primetime games anymore, but they got it in 5. So
yeah,
to me, that was very interesting.
They
yeah,
want to give Jordan Love that spotlight.
they just lost some guy named Aaron Rodgers. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
oh,
all. That's all.
some guy, some guy.
Just some guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one interesting thing about the last week of the season is I believe Atlanta plays New Orleans,
Yes.
so that game could very well be for the NFC South.